that way, and I mean, there were 7 of us total, and really, from a very early perspective, firsthand, I saw the importance of good jobs. When my folks had good jobs, life was stable, and on top of that stability, we could plan for the future. We could plan for next month and next year and what was going to happen after graduation. When my folks didn't have good jobs, life was tough. And we really lost the ability to plan for the future because we were scrambling to get through that day. I think we all know in this room the importance of good jobs. I mean, they're critical. And a lot of folks think, well-intentioned folks, our friends on the left, think that concentrating power in Washington, D.C. is the best way to help working class families. And it isn't. I mean, these policies that are well-intentioned are generally counterproductive. And this isn't an academic or a policy interest for me. This is intensely personal. And it is for a lot of people. I mean, this hardworking people getting ahead is a central part of the American story. But sending more and more of our time and our treasure and our freedom to Washington, D.C. doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, Washington, D.C. Doesn't do a better job innovating than all of us. Washington, D.C. isn't smarter than all of us, and that's smarter than a couple guys in the back, I'll give you that. But Washington, D.C. isn't harder working than all of us. Now, luckily, there's a better way. And it's a way that's been around for a long time. A couple hundred years ago, the founders really believed that people exercising power for themselves, or that power being exercised as close as possible to them, was better than giving it to some everything to everybody colossus. And if you send me to Washington, I will work every day to send that power back. To send power back to businesses and to families, to states and communities, so that small businesses and startups can innovate and create the jobs that those working class families really do need to get ahead. Now, this is not just talk for me. These are the philosophies that guided my time on the Public Utilities Commission when we kept rates low and we empowered the private sector to build billions of dollars of new infrastructure that really mattered to people. Things like cell phone towers and broadband and transmission lines. These were the philosophies that guided my time in the governor's office when we rolled back hundreds of regulations and eliminated a $127 million deficit without increasing taxes. We really can send that power back, and that's why I'm running. Now, the second half of our talk this morning is going to be about how we're going to run, and I want to tell you a little story, kind of an embarrassing story about our family to make the point. So, Owen, who's not here today, he's the 5-year-old. We didn't bring him because we don't love him as much. We're kidding, of course. But he was about 2, and he was potty trained, but not perfectly, which is always the most dangerous part of the potty training experience. And he had a pull-up on just for safety, and he'd gone number 2 in his pull-up. He was pretty upset about it. He was embarrassed. He wanted to hide that fact. Didn't want to ask for help. So we'd gone into his room, and he'd laid down on the carpet, and he'd taken off his pull-up, and he'd taken a single wet wipe and tried to clean it up on his own. This, of course, was a terrible disaster. There was a mess smeared all over in the carpet. And so Max and I wander down the hallway because the smell gets to us. We want to find out what's going on. And I come down, and I'm standing in the doorway. And I said, "My life is a nightmare." And Max says, "Dad, it could be so much worse." And I said, "Max, how could it be worse than this? He could be twins." And it was a good reminder for me that here I was acting like the sky was falling. But I had a family who loved me. I had a job that I was good at. I mean, our bills were paid. We had a roof over our head. And we are in a very cynical political time. There are all kinds of people who seem like they are just angry and they are bitter. And that's not me, and that's not South Dakota. The race that we're going to run, and we're going to run it together, it is going to be very different. If you believe that our country does have big problems, but that they're not so big that we can't solve them, then I'm your guy. I mean, if you want somebody who's going to respect the political opposition, then I'm your guy. I mean, we don't need to tear down, folks on the other side.
let's have a conversation. Let's sit down, use our inside voices, and let's try to work through this. We're all Americans. We all care about this country. And this race is going to be fun. It's going to be about issues. It's going to be about solutions. It's going to be about opportunities, and it's going to be about
bringing people together. So you notice that I brought most of my family up here, and Jacqueline, of course, my bride, she's a financial advisor in Mitchell and is a sweetheart. It's good to have her here. We've got Max, who's 12, and you can wave. They like you. There you go. And then Ben, who's 9. And these are pretty special boys. They pick on each other way too much. If any of you are parents, you know that's what makes you most angry when they pick on each other. And they do sometimes. But it's a little pop quiz time. We're going to try to get at the heart of how do we run the Johnson household, and maybe that'll have some lessons on how you can run a campaign too, right? All right, now I want you to raise your hand if you've ever heard me say this. You can raise it higher if you've heard me say it 100 times, okay? Anything worth doing is worth doing right. Okay, good. Grow up, stop picking on each other. Okay, yeah. What about, solutions are better than problems. Okay. What about, that doesn't go in the toaster. What about, America is the greatest country that has ever been created. Yeah, we talk about that too. And I would just say that those are the values that guide our family. And they're going to be the values that are going to guide this campaign too. Because this stuff really matters. And we can have fun. We can go out and tell a good story about this country that is not perfect, but has so much more going on for it than most of the folks on cable news ever really seem to let us realize. And so, if you are interested in having politics be fun again, and having politics be positive, then this is your race. All right, we're going to finish with a pop quiz for you all, okay? So I'll ask you questions, and if you agree, you can have a round of applause to kind of show whether or not you agree, okay? So, do you agree that we can improve the country by sending power back to families and businesses, communities and states? You agree with that? Do you agree that politics can be more about addition and multiplication than about division and subtraction? Do you believe that? Yeah. Do you believe that a little guy from Mitchell, his family, and a few thousand of their closest friends really can make a difference? Do you believe that? Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, it sounds like we are all on the same page. Let's go do it. Thank you very much.